Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Psychom Spectrum podcast. Today I sat down with Victor Lee, the founder of MedProductions, a science animation studio whose mission is to help biotech and pharma companies turn complex science into stories people can understand and remember. Victor is also the host of the Biotech Orbit podcast, where he sits down from leaders in the industry to talk about the science, strategy, and vision pushing the industry forward. In this conversation, we talk about the craft of storytelling, how wonder and understanding overlap, and how live performances can teach us more about engaging audiences than any textbook ever could. If you want some fresh inspiration for how to keep your audience's attention and communicate science in a way that sticks, you'll love this episode. Victor, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for this opportunity. I mean, I'm really happy to be here.
And I'm really excited to talk to you because you've got one hell of a career. And I think it's going to be super inspiring to everybody listening who doesn't know maybe all the different paths that science communication can take. I think you're like a stellar case study that you can really forge your own path. So I can't wait to get into it. It's going to be juicy.
Okay, let's do this.
We're going to jump around a lot, but I want to start in the present. So MedProductions, science animation. Tell me about your studio.
Right. So that started a year and a half ago. And well, actually, I should go back a little bit earlier if it's okay. I used to have this science YouTube channel, and I just started making science YouTube videos because I enjoy talking about science. And I was wondering how could I make this work, like monetarily, because I don't know if you know, I think you know, science YouTube channels are not that easy to grow, at least for a first timer. And yeah, I got like 1,000 subs, and it was COVID era, and that worked well for COVID videos. But then the views went down a bit, and I was thinking like, what can I do right now that would make money? Not 5 years later, but that you will start making some money, right? Because I love doing science. I love talking about science and communicating science, and I wanted to figure out what could I do. So the thing is that my brother, he is a professor in graphic design and animations. And I just thought that this was the perfect opportunity for me to work with him and start MedProductions. That's how it started, actually. I was not sure if it was going to work or not. And so what I did was that I first checked on LinkedIn and to see if there was someone doing something related with science animations. You know, when you're starting, you don't know if something's going to work. So yeah, you just need to check if there's other businesses doing that, specializing in just science animations. And there were. So that's how it started.
And I think that's a really good point too. So you took seeing that somebody was already doing that as an indication that it's a good idea to do it.
Right.
And that's, I think, a very key point, because I think for a lot of people who have maybe never launched something of their own, or maybe they're on the fence about it, and the thing stopping them is the fear that, you know, all of us have. To see that someone is already doing something can be quite off-putting, maybe, if you think about it that way, because it's like, oh, they're already doing it. Why should I do the same thing? But actually, it can be a proof of concept. It's a proof that the market wants what you're doing. So there's more opportunity for your success.
Exactly. It's just not easy. It's not easy to find the first clients. So I didn't have any contacts or not many contacts in the pharma or biotech industry. So how do you start? That was the first question, right? And then, okay, let's do LinkedIn. Let's do cold emailing. Let's do reaching out to some friends that maybe they can reference you and get you in contact with some other people that are in the pharma industry. So I started doing all that. And at some point, 8 months later, I should say, I finally got the clients, a really good client, because I should say that it's not that many, but they are pretty good clients. They need a lot of animations and other type of things. So yeah, that's how it started. So it was, I tried several things, and it was tough at the beginning, but then of course it becomes easier as you get clients, and then you get references, and then it grows.
Yeah. And your confidence grows.
Right. Of course. Because at the beginning you're like, am I doing this right? I mean, I already had the experience, and because of the science YouTube videos that we used to make for fun with my brother as well, we already had animations to show, and we had a portfolio to show. So that helped a lot as well at some point. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. With these kinds of careers, portfolios are key in a way that, you know, resumes and cover letters and things are less relevant, right? People want to see proof of the work. Can you do it? Does it look good? Would I pay you to do it for me?
Right.
So Tell me a bit about a life cycle of a project right now. So from a first touch point with the client through to sending them a finished animation, what does that journey look like?
Wow, it actually varies a lot. So there are some clients that just contact you. Well, in this case, it was someone through LinkedIn contacting me, and we just had a small chat. They already knew me because of the posts that I have there, so it was relatively easy, and we started working like 2 or 3 weeks later. But then the first client, the one that took quite a while, it's a pharma company, and that takes longer if it's a pharmaceutical versus a biotech startup. Pharmaceuticals, first you have your first contact point, you discuss with them what they want, and then they have to get the budget for it. That may take a bit longer. So I got in contact with them 2 months after starting MedProductions, and then we started working 6 months later after signing contracts and doing the due compliance and due diligence that they need to do. It could vary. It's between 2 weeks versus 6 to 8 months. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing to keep in mind. And just something you mentioned there, maybe you can define for the audience who might not be
Hmm.
so familiar, what's the difference between a pharma company and a biotech company?
Right, right. Okay, so when I say pharma, you could think of big pharma like Merck, Abbey, and all those pharmaceuticals, but also you could consider small companies that already have approved drugs and that are marketing those drugs. So that's what I meant by pharma, because usually biotech startups, they are developing the drug, and that takes 7 to 10 years, right? So that's how I'm differentiating between biotech startups and pharma. Yeah.
So is it fair to say then that they generally start as a biotech company, and once they've
Mm.
passed the necessary clinical trials and they have an approved drug or like approved product, which is a drug in their case, they graduate to being a pharma company in terms
That's
of how
how
we're
I would
describing it?
put it. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm, mm,
Okay.
mm, mm.
Good to
Yes.
know. Good to
And
know.
yeah. So then different depending on the client, it can be different. So it's very I would advise people to listen to what they need more than what you want to offer. Because when I started, I wanted to offer these YouTube like videos for pharma companies. That doesn't always work. Depends on the pharma company, but usually they want something that looks I'll, more impactful. That's the word that they use. That something that looks more professional. And you know that science YouTube videos like TED Ed. I'm not sure if you've seen TED Ed videos, or maybe Veritasium. They sometimes have like cute animations that are talking for the general public. So that's different for the to the work that I'm doing for pharma companies sometimes, and sometimes they do want something more creative.
So I know that the videos that you make are aimed at different audiences depending on what your client needs. You know, you could make videos for the general public, like you said, so maybe patients that are looking for a specific solution to an issue that they're having, or like maybe a way a procedure works, or you could be making videos for a company that wants to attract investors
Okay.
and get their attention. Can you tell me a bit about what it's like to work with these different audiences and the different needs that they have? Are any of them trickier to work with than others?
All right. So looking at it from the audience perspective, right? So if it's the general public, we can use metaphors. We can be more creative, and we can make it more fun and more engaging in that sense. You need to make sure that you connect with them by talking in the language that they speak. At some point, I said neuron, and I was talking with someone, like just someone that is not science related, and they didn't know what a neuron was. So that puts into perspective how much you have to change the language that you use. So that's for the
Mhm.
general public, right? And then if it's for pharma, it also depends. So maybe they want to have this video that is the mechanism of disease and then the mechanism of action, which is their drug. That might be used to introduce it to their distributors, which may not have a strong scientific background. So you also have to adjust the language a bit. And yes, the videos help a lot for them to figure out how things work. Just trying to figure out what the audience wants, which is the less they know, you just try to make sure that it's the more simplified it is. Mm.
Mhm. And how do you balance that simplicity with keeping things as scientifically accurate as possible? Because there's a lot of decision, right, about like, you know, something can be scientifically accurate, but just you've omitted a lot of the detail, right?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And well, First, I would say that it comes from my experience of making science YouTube videos, and then I would get the comments, and I would get some feedback. I would read the comments, and I would get some feedback from there. But most importantly, is at the beginning of the project, you discuss with the client, and then it's more of a conversation that you're having with them, and they also have their own thoughts, and there's gonna be maybe a review of the script, and yeah, that's how it goes. It's more of a ongoing conversation.
Yeah. And an element of it is instinctual, I guess, that you get over time with experience.
Right, right, because of the science YouTube videos, yes, of course, and because of what I studied and doing the science YouTube videos, and so we can speak later about some other company that I started. So it will all merge at some point.
Yeah. And that's something that I have heard said by many people as reassurance to people who maybe have, like myself, who have many
Mm.
different interests that on the surface don't look related, or different skill sets from different experiences that also maybe don't look related. It's that have faith that this will all converge at one point. All of it is useful. And that advice can be a saving grace when you're in a moment of crisis, as I have been in the past over my career. Like, what am I doing? But it can also be a little bit, it can kind of fall flat, I think, sometimes, because when you're deep in it, it's easy to sort of dismiss and say, yeah, right. When is that going to happen? I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting. So this is a reminder to anyone listening that just stay the course, because here's another independent observer saying that
Right.
everything does merge. Everything is useful.
It
All your
does, it does. I
interests.
mean, of course, you don't know at the beginning, but you just keep doing science stuff, and at some point, everything will converge, as you said. Yeah.
Right. It's like that idea of if you follow your passion and you're authentically true to it, you can't help but be successful eventually if you don't give up.
Oh, I want to say something about the first client, the pharma client. So okay, so it took a while to get these meetings right with them, but during the meeting, talking about authenticity, I just mentioned like, yeah, I love doing science videos, and I would love to work with you guys on whatever project we were talking about, right? And then the client was like, "Really?" Like she she understood there that this person really likes science, and that has helped me so much because it's they liked me because of that, because I really enjoy doing this, and they helped me in a lot of ways. It's not only one video, then they wanted more videos, and then they referred me to other organizations that they work with, and that has helped tons. That's what has helped me the most, I think, referrals.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with this, that it's such an overlooked element.
Mm.
I think we have a tendency as a society and as ambitious people to fixate on certificates or incredible testimonials,
Yeah.
or, oh, this fancy logo of this massive company that I did something for, and that is going to give you clout. And a lot of the time, especially when you're starting out, but it's still true even as you progress, your own enthusiasm for stuff
Mm,
is going to get you so far just on its own. It is
definitely.
something really, really valued. So don't undervalue it in yourself. I definitely agree with you. And I've also had the same experience where clients have chosen me over other candidates because they can tell that I'm just really into what I do. They're like, we can feel your
Right.
enthusiasm through the script. And I'm like, yes, because I really nerded out on this and it was amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. And I think as scientists or people that studied science, they love learning. And when you're working in science communication, you're learning what the client is doing, right? The person that you're collaborating with. And yeah, it's just enjoyable, like all the way.
Did you teach yourself animation? Did your brother teach you?
I cannot draw. Like I can do sticks. The circle of the head and five sticks. That's pretty much my my animation knowledge. No, it's usually my brother in this case. I'm more focused on promoting and on talking with clients and just keeping a good relationship with them. Yeah.
Okay. So you're like the business guy, the marketing guy, client relationships, and your brother is the creative force.
Right, and one thing is that my brother doesn't have a science degree. It's a pretty good combination because he can tell me like, okay, this is not something that's going to be understood by the general public audience, right? And then I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe you're right. And then it's also a discussion with a creative director, in this case, my brother, and that helps as well. Hmm.
Absolutely. If a big studio like Pixar or a distributor like Netflix called you and said, hey, we want you to tell a biotech story, what would you pitch them?
I know that Pixar always makes these movies that are with animals or something very unexpected and then they make it human. So that's what I would do. I would basically make the characters more human, which are the cells, and would come up with a story it happening inside our bodies, or I don't know, someone like a body, right? Like a human body, a living body, and the cells will go through some, I don't know, event and maybe some disease that they are trying to fight. And yeah, I think that would be pretty cool.
So, your brother doesn't have a scientific background, but you do. You have quite the background, a bachelor's in medical engineering and 2 master's degrees?
Right. In molecular and cell bio, and the other one was online in cognitive science. So I was doing both at the same time, because well, I just felt like I was not doing enough. That's a me problem. And after that, actually, I started doing a PhD, which was in neuroscience, because I always wanted to study neuroscience. But first, I was doing biomedical engineering, then the molecular and cell bio, and the cognitive science, right? But then I like wet labs more than programming, and that PhD was mostly programming. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure if this is for me. And then, yeah, then I decided to drop it and do something else.
What is a wet lab?
A wet lab is a lab where you're working in the bench, and then you're doing experiments. And the dry lab would be programming or sitting in front of a computer doing some programming, basically. Yeah.
So, a wet lab is kind of maybe what we more traditionally think of what scientists do behind the scenes, test tubes, microscopes, that kind of stuff, petri dishes. Yeah. And then a dry lab would be like, so would sort of, when you get human subjects in for sort of cognitive test, you put like the EEG mask on them,
Yeah,
get them
we
to
did
do
that.
different things. Would that be a dry lab?
Oh, I mean, I guess that I have no idea, I should say that I don't know. I would say it's still kind of a dry lab because we actually did that. I would have to be the subject as well, and you would just sit there, and then there would be these lights popping on your, flickering on you, and then there was this EEG measuring what's happening in the occipital lobe in the back part of your head, and that took 30 minutes. Everything else was programming and data analysis. Yeah. So I would say it's more of a dry lab. Yeah.
Interesting to hear because I also studied medical science undergrad,
Mm,
but all my focus in my last year and all my big projects and my dissertation and everything and my lab work was all neuroscience.
mm.
And I've been playing with this idea of getting a higher degree in neuroscience. I was going to say PhD, but I realized I should probably get a master's first, especially since I'm like 10 years out of academia. So it's interesting to hear this, that it's very sort of programming based. I suppose it makes sense with where the world's going, but I hadn't thought about it.
You're right. With what I was working on, maybe there's other labs that you work with animal models, and then yes, you will probably have a lot of molecular. If you're working in molecular bio, you'll probably have a lot of experiments that you could be working on. But yeah, I would like to do a PhD later on, but let's leave that for later.
Thinking about people who might be listening who are in academia, maybe they did a PhD or they're doing one now, or
Mm-mm,
they're a postdoc,
mm,
but they maybe feel a craving to do something a bit more creative as well as, or maybe instead of.
mm.
What do you have to say to them?
I would suggest them if they have the time to start already, just to start, just to give it a try, and then contact their peers and try to find some clients. Like that's pretty important because if you decide to leave academia and go into industry, then that means that you'll have to get a job most likely and support yourself, which is going to make it much harder to start something. Because I feel like during your PhD or postdoc, yes, you're working for long hours, but you have some time during experiments, or you can find some time. When you're working in industry, you're working from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, or even longer in some countries. And you're just tired when you get home, and it's just much harder. So it's a start right now.
Well, I think taking a step back, maybe they aren't even sure what they would do. Maybe they just feel a craving for something creative, but they don't necessarily have a fully formed offer in mind to where they're
Mm,
already ready to start looking for clients, because that feels like step 1, but it's really step like 5. You need to figure out what problem you're solving first. Then you need to figure out what's the best way to solve it. Who are you solving it for? And I think those are maybe so once you have those 3 things, then you can start finding your first clients. And those 3 things will change over time too.
I was jumping ahead of myself, but yes, of course, first you need to figure out what you can do, right? And who's you're going to be your client, and if it's feasible, if someone else is doing it, you have to take a look into that. Yes, I agree.
You heard it here first, folks. Don't jump ship yet. Take advantage of the time you have in academia.
It happened to me. I had an industry job, right? And it was 5 days a week. And it was tough at the beginning. That's because then you have to work at night. But yeah, so just if you have time, start right away. If you already have an idea, of course, in mind.
Mm. So you left academia, but
No.
you did have some experience in traditional education because you worked as a high school science teacher for a year.
Right. So yes, that's I live in Taiwan, and my Chinese is not the best. And then you're thinking, what can I do? So one of the options was to be a technical writer. That's something that in Taiwan they really love. And the other one was being not a science teacher, but a teacher. And I'm like, definitely teaching. I mean, I already love science communication. Let's try that. And then, yeah, I started working on in a high school, a senior high school, teaching AP science, AP research. Let's see if I remember AP Psych, AP Seminar, and some other science courses. Yes.
Being in that classroom, you got to see close up young minds interacting with new scientific concepts for the first time, or having their first aha moment on something that they maybe were struggling with for a while. How does that inform your approach that you take today with MedProductions and the videos you make?
Very interesting. I think it's still thinking of who your audience is. And in this case, I would say it's easier because they have the books and they will also be learning by themselves. So I wouldn't just give props to me, right? It's not like that. It's like they do their own thing. Some probably don't even listen to me and they just study by themselves. That's what I would do. So I mean, I get it. But yeah, for the people that are for some of the students, it's trying to make it more interesting. That's what I would say. I remember for a psychology class, and we were talking about priming. And priming is you will give a number, for example, and then when you ask the student to give another number, they will give you a number that is close to that number. So, for example, if I say 10, they will say something in the tens, 12, 13, 14, maybe 20. But nobody will think 1 million right away. So we did those types of small experiments that they would enjoy doing, and that would make it more engaging. And yeah, just trying to make things more interesting.
Yeah, it's a good point of, earlier you were talking about using metaphors when you make videos for the general public, so it's something they understand. You take it even a step further, I guess, in these situations, because you need to be kind of in the loop of what teenagers are consuming or what's trending or what they're talking about.
That too.
To then, if you can make your metaphors link in with pop culture or with something like that, you have a better chance of getting their attention, either because it clicks or because they're like, oh, but you're so old, that's cringe. Either way, they'll remember it. And, you were ripping on yourself saying, it's not just me because they study themselves and they have the books and things. But I think having maybe not bad teachers, but disengaged teachers, at least, is really detrimental. And I have seen this myself because in the pandemic, I also had a project that I launched. I launched an Instagram channel. This was even before Instagram had Reels. Can you imagine? It was all still just photos. Doesn't that feel like so long ago? And I noticed this gap where there were a lot of channels, or what do you call them? Pages. I've been in YouTube for so long, everything's a channel now. There are pages where, they had revision notes, but they were so dense and like kind of ugly and just like you didn't really want to spend time looking at them. Or it was all sort of like study inspo content of like very beautiful desks and stationery. And so not any actual curriculum content, just like the vibe of the study room. So I was like, okay, how can I make the notes really pretty and like understandable and digestible? So I made a page called the IB Scientist because I went through the International Baccalaureate and it's quite niche. So I thought, specific help would be good. And I made a lot of content around, biology and chemistry revision notes. And obviously it led to comments and DMs and it led to one-on-one tutoring with some people. And that was all such a trip. But the big thing that came out of it for me that I realized was most kids don't even struggle with the content. They struggle with, it's almost like the content is step 2. And step 1 is their own confidence in themselves, their beliefs about themselves, the fear, the anxiety, the procrastination that leads to, which then stops them from studying. And the biggest one, which I also was a victim of when I was in school, is this idea that I'm just not the kind of person that can do this. I'm not a science person, or I'm not a math
Right.
person. And this is something that happens in STEM
Oh.
specifically. You know, how many times have you heard someone say, oh, I'm not a math person, right? But you don't say like,
All
oh,
the time.
you don't really hear that much about other subjects that much, I think.
Are you talking about the imposter syndrome type of thing as well, or?
A little bit, but it's more like, I think people write themselves off with STEM before they maybe even try. Or maybe
Mm.
they try once, it doesn't go so well, and they're like, oh, well, I'm just not the kind of person that
Ah,
can do
got
this.
it.
And I think
Got it.
when you coming back to the point of, if you have a disengaged teacher, that will just become sort of cemented in your head of, that's my identity. Because
Mm.
the engaged teacher will kind of try to lift you up. And I mean, I know that teachers are, they have it really tough and they're doing their best,
Yeah.
you know, but I guess I'm speaking from experience just to close this off, because when I was in school, I changed schools a lot because I moved
Mm.
around a lot, you know,
Right.
international kid, international school. And I had a lot of gaps in my knowledge as a result, which meant
Mm.
that I was really behind in chemistry and I was super lost. And I fell into this way of thinking for a while where I was like, I just can't do chemistry. It just makes no
Mm.
sense. I don't get it. And it was the same for math, actually.
Huh.
And it was only when I sat down and I literally brute forced pushed my way through to like force myself to understand it. And one day it all clicked. And then I
Wow.
realized, oh, wait, I was suddenly going from getting like 40s and 50% to like 90% because something just clicked. And I was like, okay, so I wasn't dumb. I wasn't not a chemistry person. I just had gaps in my knowledge that I didn't know were there. And I feel
Yeah.
like if a teacher had just paid attention, they would have seen that was the case.
Mm.
And so through this Instagram page I was doing, I saw a lot of kids with the same experience, and they would
Oh.
get it sometimes for the first time through this stuff that I was sharing, which felt amazing. So,
Yeah.
all this coming back to, I'm sure you as a teacher played a bigger role than you realize in helping kids.
You just remind me of seeing kids learn when we did this projects, and they were, I don't know, maybe making a brain out of clay, right?
Yeah,
Or yes, yeah, it just reminded me of that. But yeah, those were the aha moments.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, do you think that there is a through line here between coming back to talking to kids in a classroom and talking to biotech CEOs in a boardroom? Is there something in common there with how you get your point across? Thanks so much for tuning in to the first half of my conversation with Victor. Before we keep going, I just have a quick request for you. If you're enjoying the podcast so far, there are 3 free things I would like to take 2 minutes to get you to do. First, make sure that you are subscribed. It really helps the podcast reach more people. Second, please leave a 5-star review wherever you listen. If you're on YouTube, drop a comment of what you've learned so far. And last but not least, please share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it or benefit from it, because these stories only really matter when they get to the people that need them most. Alrighty, that is all. Let's get back to Victor.
Well, I think it's quite similar because you're writing it in a way that everyone would understand that doesn't have a science background, and investors don't always have a science background, right? So you need to make sure that okay, this is something that anyone that doesn't have a science background can understand. Let's say 12 years old and 12 years old or older. Some people say you should write as maybe you can say more about this, but that you should write like as if you're talking to an 8-year-old. That's what you usually read. I try to do it for a 12 years old, but yeah, it works. And yeah, it's pretty much the same. What might change is probably the visuals. And that's what might change. Like the visuals for a kid would be more engaging and animated and faster movements. And for an investor, it's something that is not moving as much and more focused.
And I think you touched on something important here, which is that, you know, you mentioned before your brother doesn't have a science background.
Mm.
I think it's important that people know that there is still space for people without science backgrounds in science communication.
Mm.
Because kind of what you said, like the questions that he will ask you maybe to clarify what you need from the creative, it's the kind of thing that the audience would probably also be wondering. If you have a skill like editing or animation or copywriting or anything that's semi-creative and in the communication kind of area, even if you don't have a science background, you don't have a PhD, like don't let that stop you. Neither of us have PhDs. And here we are.
Right. It's definitely, yes. I mean, definitely. there's a lot of people that don't have a science background and they are working in some sort of science communication. So it is definitely possible. I think it just would require a bit more listening from the client or studying or both.
So you did teaching for a year, and then what made you move on from that?
So that's still not industry. I wanted some industry experience. And that's the reason why, because as a teacher, there's not much growth there. I think you know what's going to happen. And I wanted something new. And
Hmm.
yeah, that's when I moved to industry. Mm,
Yeah, because you're quite the. I feel like you, just from reading a little bit about you before we
mm.
talked, you seem to be quite a natural builder, somebody who likes to create things from scratch, get things off the ground, you know? And I'm
Yeah.
specifically referring to, I mean, you did it with your podcast, which we'll talk about in a bit. You did
Mm-mm.
it with MedProductions, and you also did it as a fresh faced graduate doing something pretty amazing in Honduras.
Yeah, I mean, there's a story behind it. So I just graduated, or I was at the verge of graduating. I needed to come back to do something else. I forgot what, but yeah. So basically, my mom had cancer, or at that time, and I had to go back to see her, right?
Go back where?
And Honduras, go back to Honduras. I live in Taiwan. I had to go back to Honduras. It's a very long flight, by the way. So I've always wanted to build something or do something, right? And it's usually I revolve around science. That's my thing. I've always revolved around science, even since I'm a kid. It's always been science. So it was very natural for me to want to start a company for delivering. In that case, the first product was for distributing kits for cancer prevention, genetic kits for cancer prevention. So there's this company here in Taiwan that they were making those kits. And then I contacted them, and that's how it started. It just started right away. And yeah, actually, that was pretty easy because I expected more of a uh, the big company telling someone that was just starting, right, that just graduated. No, but actually, it worked pretty well, and that's how we started. And it's called Biogen Life. I'm not there anymore because I'm in Taiwan, and then I just sold my part of the business, and then but it's still there. The genetic kits are not the main product anymore, but it helped just it helped starting something. And then in Honduras, it's mostly about plates because a lot of people just break their legs because they drive motorcycles and then they end up in the emergency room and then you just put a plate on their bones and that works pretty well. So it's a little bit of testing as well. But yeah, that goes with everything that we need to test and try new things to see what works.
That's amazing. And I actually, one of my questions was going to be, this is so bold. How did you pull this off? So I'm very surprised to hear you say that it was really easy, that they were just happy to kind of be like, yeah, run with it, do it. So I guess more specifically, what exactly were you doing? Like, let's paint a picture. So you went approach this company who had these genetic testing kits that would screen for like genes that were risk markers for certain cancers,
For cancer, right?
and then you would get them to Honduras. Were you traveling back and forth?
No need. I was gonna come back to Taiwan, and then yeah, I visited them when I was here, but there was no need of that as well. I just contacted the CEO through LinkedIn, and I'm like, hey, I'm interested in distributing your kits here in Central America. If you guys are up for it, let's talk. And he was up for
Mm-hmm.
it, and then that's how it started. And then we just had online conversations, and yeah, no need of the physical me being in Taiwan.
Yeah, makes sense. So you were in Honduras and those kits were shipped to you. And then how did you go about distributing them? Was it all sort of in-person stuff? Did you go to hospitals or clinics? Where were they left for patients to pick up or interact with?
So my partner is a doctor, or he was gonna be a doctor. He's already a doctor right now. And he had some contacts, and then we started talking with them and seeing if there was any interest in offering these kits. And then we just started talking with oncologists. We went to their offices and we presented the kit, and if they were interested and if they had a patient that wanted something like this, then we could offer it to them. And that's how it started. Yeah.
Okay, nice, cool. And so you would get a flat fee from the company in Taiwan, or you would get a percentage of all the kits that you managed to sell?
All right. So at that time, we just bought, I believe we bought 100 kits at once. And the thing is that you don't have to buy the whole. The cost of the kit may not be as much as you think when it's in bulk. So it was fine, and that's how we did it. Basically, we bought it in bulk, and they were very nice to just give it to us at a good price because there was no one in here offering that, and that could seem like a good opportunity. Yeah. Mhm.
And do you have any idea of the kind of impact that your work had?
Of course. I mean, yes, yes. There's, well, my ex-partner, he would tell me that there's these people that did the test and it helped them to be better at prevention because that's what the kit was meant for. It was meant for preventing cancer, so making better life choices, lifestyle choices. That's pretty much where it led. So it helped patients know, okay, I have a higher risk of getting this type of cancer. What can I do to probably decrease that risk? And when they're
Hmm.
discussing with the doctors, then it's hard to tell the impact because we didn't stay in contact, or I didn't stay in contact with the patients that would tell you, oh, I never got cancer, right? Because it's for cancer prevention. But for sure, if you know that someone has a higher risk, you want them to decrease that risk, right?
And how is your mom? Did
She
she?
passed away. No, it was already brain cancer, and yeah, long time ago. That was, well, not 3 to 4 years ago. It feels like yeah, 3 to 4 years ago. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Mm.
man.
Yeah.
So I have a question about culture
Mm.
because you straddle two different places.
Right.
And I know that culture can play a big role when it comes to how medical interventions are seen, how likely people are to trust them or use them. So when it comes to distributing these in Honduras, you obviously had the
Mm.
advantage that you are from Honduras, so you have
Mm-mm-mm.
an insight into the culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's say I were to send you to, I don't know, a country that you have nothing to do with, just so random like Romania.
All right. All right.
Would your approach be different
Approach you different. Well, that's a. You mean as a doctor? If you were a doctor, that I would have to.
if you were trying to do the same thing, distribute these cancer prevention kits?
Mm-mm-mm. Huh.
How do you think your approach might be different? It doesn't have to be Romania. It can be anywhere. I mean, I don't know, Chile or Canada or New Zealand or Uganda, anywhere that is sort of not maybe a place you're so familiar with.
Well, but let's say that we both speak English, right? We both speak the same
Okay,
language. I
sure.
would probably still go to the office to get in contact with them because I think it's very important to build relationships and to just have a relationship with your client. I think that's extremely important, actually. That's probably one of the most important things because, yeah, your life depends on them, basically.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so I would do that. And nowadays, because I know that LinkedIn works, I know that there's other ways of doing it. I'll probably try a bit of those and test the waters. But yeah, mainly I would try to get in contact with them and have a physical one-on-one conversation, or I mean, a conversation with them in where we are in the same room. Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Something that has come up several times as we've been talking that I'm noticing is that you seem to be somebody who just approaches people. I think the common thread in what you do is you always have a partner, or you're not shy to sort of take the first step, send that first message, say, even in your advice to academics, you said, just reach out, just start looking for clients. What do you think makes you so able to do that? Is it confidence? Is it
Oof.
experience?
Not confidence, not experience. So what drives me? Well, first I should say that I'm always nervous. I'm still nervous. I was nervous before starting this conversation. It's always there. That doesn't stop. And yeah, I do interviews. I sometimes go to exhibitions and I have to interview people. It takes me a while to muster the, how do I put it, to go and talk to someone. It takes me a while, but yeah, you just gotta do it. But it's probably because I know what I want and I want to do science communication and I just need to do it. It's just like, if this is what I want, I'll just go for it. So it's a very, yeah, jump head first type of, yeah, personality.
It kind of comes back to that concept that's shared so often of, the Simon Sinek principle of start with why. Start with why you're doing something, because that will be your guiding light when things are scary or hard.
Right, that makes total sense. What about you?
I definitely get nervous also. But I think I know myself well enough where it's always just up until the thing starts. Once the thing starts, whatever it is, whether it's this conversation or an interview or giving a talk and on a stage, the minute I get into it, the first 30 seconds, it's gone. Like, I'm not nervous now. I haven't been
Totally
nervous through the
agree.
conversation.
Totally agree. It's right now. It's totally fine. Hmm.
And I would say that I agree that the nervousness doesn't go away, but it gets easier with time. It's maybe quieter and quieter. And also at the same time, your confidence grows to where you know your patterns. And so you know, yeah, I'm nervous right now, but I know the minute the interviewer gets on, I'm going to be so fine. Or I know that I'm going to nail it because I always nail it and I always feel good afterwards. So I think being able to focus on what comes after the immediate nerves kind of helps also.
Yeah, yeah, but I think your point was so good that it's the why. Simon Sinek is amazing, by the way. But yeah, it's if you know your why, then it's much easier to go for something.
Yeah, when you feel like you don't have a choice, you're like, if this is what I want to do, then this is how I got to do it. So I don't really have a choice. I got to just put my big girl pants or my big boy pants on and suck it up.
Definitely, definitely.
What's the worst that can happen? You know, a little rejection therapy is good for everyone.
All the time.
So, you know, you're being interviewed right now, but
Mm.
you also interview many people because you have a podcast called
Yeah.
the Biotech Orbit Podcast, which I would
Mm.
love to talk about for a little bit in the last little section that we have here. And maybe a good place to start is, you know, you talked about this a little bit before. What does biotech mean? And maybe you can define that in terms of when you decide what guests to have on your podcast, what do they need to be working in for you to bring them on?
So what does biotech mean? Well, it's a very big field. We have, for example, some biotech companies are developing drugs, and this could be a lot of types of drugs. There's just so many types. And then there's companies that are working in agriculture, and they are trying to improve the crops. And there's people that are trying to just make the devices that would help discover new things. So but it's usually related with biology. That's the bio of tech. And tech, of course, is the developing that technology, which could be pretty much anything of what I just said. For the guests, I just want to understand the whole biotech world. So it could be a CEO that's developing a new drug, and I want to understand why he did it. Or it could be someone that is doing marketing for biotech, and I also want to understand. I just want to understand the whole thing. That's the point. And then why I started the Biotech Orbit is for connecting with biotech people, because I think that maybe some listeners don't know how to start, and that's something that you need to figure out. In my case, it was not only don't know how to start, but don't know how to connect with someone. And in my case, it was making a podcast, because that way you just get to connect with people and you get to know them better. And who knows, maybe they will become your clients.
Yeah. Or if not a client, they could be a great referral or just a cool industry connection or even a friend, or, you know, there's so many ways that these relationships can blossom.
Definitely, I have some people that I interviewed that now we play board games together. He's just a friend, a very good friend now. But yeah, yep.
That's awesome. That's a win in my book. What board games do you play?
Terraforming Mars, Dominion. I play a lot of Dune Imperium or Dune Uprising, which it's super fun. It's a strategy game, and then there's other strategy. Depends on the guests. Sometimes it's strategy games. Then there's other games that are more like party games. But yeah, and also social deduction.
In person, or are they virtual games that you
No,
play?
no, no, definitely in person. Because I mean, well, I think that you will see something around this conversation, which is that I'm always going back to talking with people in person or being with them. That's something that I value a lot. It's just a personal, I don't want to die alone type of thing. Like you know that as we grow older, from the research that people have less and less friends and less interactions, I don't want to go in that direction. So I do give a lot of value to friendships.
That's beautiful. I think it's a good reminder for everybody, myself included. Speaking to so many biotech leaders on your podcast, What is something that's happening in biotech that maybe came out in the last 2 or 3 years that you're just super optimistic about, or you think has the potential to impact people's lives for the better in a big way?
Ooh, I'm not gonna say AI, not AI. I'm gonna say organoids. It's very useful for testing therapies, and that's gonna change. I mean, I hope that eventually we wouldn't need to test as much in humans or animals, but then we will just have these petri dishes, and then you'll test the drugs there and see if it's gonna work or not in us or animals, whoever the drug is made for. Mm.
So an organoid is, because it's the first time I hear this term too, it's a synthetic organ or it's a real piece of tissue that's been cultured in a dish?
Uh, it's a real piece of tissue as far as my understanding goes. It's a real because I was in this conference and they were talking about organoids and they were talking about how they have it's real cells that they are in a petri dish and we're making it usually in the petri dish you will just have a flat you will have cells in the flat surface, but in this case they are able to make it 3D, and that makes it more it's more similar to our bodies, right? And then that's more helpful to test. And then they are adding different types of cells, which will make it even more similar to how we are. And it's going to just, yeah, it's just going to be better for us for testing.
Wow, that's really cool.
I mean, I think it's just my guess that it would reduce the amount of testing that you would need to do in animals or humans.
That's so cool. That's awesome. I love that. Hadn't heard of that. It's a new one for me. So we've covered a whole bunch of different things that you've done. And
Uh-huh.
I'm curious, identity is a tricky question for anyone, but
I,
do you see yourself as an entrepreneur or as a communicator or a science nerd or a video maker? Like, how do you see yourself?
I see myself as someone that is very self-driven. It's but as a communicator, I guess I could see myself as a communicator. I don't think as much how do I see myself as what do I do next. But I was reading this book right now, Surrounded by Idiots. It's a book that gives you a framework of how a person is, their identity, and there's these colors. There's green, blue, yellow, and red, and I was a mixture of blue, red, and yellow, which means I have creativity. I can look into details, and I'm self-driven. So yeah, I guess those are the three main points. Yeah. Then I guess that relates a lot with science communication and starting a business.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you summed it up perfectly. I think about what's next. I
Hmm.
think that's the definition of a builder. I mean, I don't want to define you. Who am I to define you? But I think that's a powerful statement and says a lot about how you approach things.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I haven't thought about this either. I struggle with the word entrepreneur because it has connotations of like, like the big tech bros that have like,
Mm,
you say entrepreneur and I imagine like Alex Hormozy. You know what I mean? Like obsessed with just like making the revenue as big as possible and
mhm.
teams and like like sales and high ticket and all this. And so I know that that's a very limited view of what an entrepreneur is, but it's just what I associate it with. So that's why I struggle personally with that title. I I like the word solopreneur. I like the word freelancer. I like creator. So any of those things I think encapsulate me well because I've noticed that, again, coming back to the more you do things, the more you notice your own patterns, whether you want to class what you do as a success or a failure, which, I don't really believe in failure, but regardless, every action you take teaches you about your own patterns. And a pattern I've seen in myself is that I'm very, 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 very good at starting things.
Ah,
I'm not so good at following through on things. And for a long time, I thought that was a very big problem because we're taught that the follow through is like the important
that's
thing. You need discipline, you need like, consistency, you need all these things. And that's what's going to make you the 6-figure revenue and all, this thing that everybody chases after, which I've realized I don't necessarily want to chase after. But actually, I'm doing myself a very big disservice by devaluing myself because of my follow through being weaker than my ignition, let's say. It's actually a huge advantage to have really good ignition and be
hmm,
able to take something from 0 to 1 in record time. That's amazing. Like, that's
yeah.
so great. And we need both kinds of people. So I think if you're going to like start something and you want to do it with like a co-founder, it's good to get like one of each of you. People talk about complementary skill sets, like you and your brother, like you're more business marketing, he's more creative, and that's amazing. You have complementary skill sets. Or, Steve Jobs and Wozniak, he was like the marketing brain and the other guy was the tech brain. And so you have that, but you also need complementary personalities, I think, complementary soft skills. So that's a bit of a tangent, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah, about the identity, I think something that's really important is what you revolve around. So mine is science, I assume. I'm pretty sure that yours is science as well. But yes, so whatever I do is probably going to be science related. Whatever company I start or whatever I think I start is usually science related. Yeah.
What is one message that you'd love people to take away from this conversation as we come to the close now?
If you already know what you want and you already did your due diligence, then start. Don't do a due diligence of reading book after book after book, because I know that with scientists that happens a lot. So read a few books if you want and check online if someone's working on that. But if you know that some people are doing it, figure out what's working and start. Just start and then keep testing until you succeed, basically. And be consistent, which what you just said. It's very important because it's very easy to see a lot of options, a lot of opportunities, and then you just need to shut them off, most of them, and just stay focused and be consistent. That would be it.
Victor, thank you so much. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more or write to you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is probably the best, just Victor Lee. And then MedProductions.media, you can also contact me through there.
Awesome. And what's next for you? Since you're looking forward all the time.
I have a lot of ideas still in my head, in my mind, that I'm just like, okay, let's stay with MedProductions right now. And yeah, that's what's next with me is growing MedProductions and growing the services that we offer.
Well, maybe we do another one of these in 6 months, 9 months.
For sure. Let's see.
We could have a whole different conversation about where you've been up to.
Definitely. And I think it's going to be very different, probably.
Victor, thank you so much.
Thank you, Julia. It was a really nice conversation.
I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
That is a wrap on my conversation with Victor Lee. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a 5-star review. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the weekly episodes. And as always, see you next time.